helped that I transmigrated into a nobody palace maid whose only life goal was simple: stay invisible, survive, retire alive. But the moment I stepped into court, every dirty little secret exploded inside my head. The Minister of War kneels on a washboard every night. The Prime Minister secretly writes the Domineering Prince Falls for me. The Grand General's monthly allowance? 5 taels. And he's still in debt. I was laughing my head off internally, happily eating gossip, until I realized the entire court could hear my thoughts. The Emperor pulled me to his side, smiling like a fox, baiting me daily for explosive secrets. Ministers broke down one by one. The court collapsed socially. I just wanted to lie low. They begged me to keep talking. From palace maid to county lady, I climbed to the top of the empire by eating gossip.
Welcome to a journey of love and destiny under the moonlight. I'm the voice behind moonlit love stories. Now let us step into the story.
I transmigrated into the body of a palace maid whose only job was to fan the emperor. The moment I realized this, I almost smashed the peacock feather fan straight onto His Majesty's head. Holy crap. I transmigrated into a total nobody. Not the female lead. Not even the female side character. At best, I was background extra number 1. As long as I lay low, I could survive. I gripped the fan handle with everything I had, staring hard at the tips of my shoes. I pretended I was an emotionless, soulless fan spirit. Inside the imperial study, the emperor was in the middle of a discussion with several ministers. The war on the northern frontier is growing tense. The supply of provisions must keep up. The emperor's voice was deep and commanding. I quietly lifted my eyes to sneak a look. Behind the dragon desk sat a man around 25 or 26 years old. Sharp brows, bright eyes, dressed in a brilliant golden dragon robe that screamed nobility. With that face, if he lived in modern times, he'd absolutely be a top-tier celebrity. Too bad he was also a feudal ruler, who could have me executed at any second. Your Majesty, the Ministry of Revenue has already allocated 300,000 taels in military funds, but the losses reported by the Ministry of War don't match the actual numbers. I fear there may be embezzlement. A middle-aged civil official stepped forward. Bullshit. A burly, bearded general beside him glared furiously. The soldiers on the front lines are risking their lives. How dare you slander? Ahem. A cool, restrained cough interrupted him. I turned toward the sound. It came from a young man around 27 or 28. He wore a dark crimson-purple official robe, his face refined like polished jade, his demeanor cold and aloof, almost like an exiled immortal. Wow, this one's handsome too. I whistled internally. Prime Minister Li, what is your opinion? The emperor looked toward the immortal-looking man. Prime Minister Li, young, accomplished, terrifyingly elegant. My eyes wandered around without restraint. Then I suddenly noticed something odd about the Minister of War's gait. His right leg seemed stiff, like it wasn't bending properly. I almost laughed inside my head. Wait a second. Isn't this the Minister of War who got caught hiding private money by his wife last night and was punished by kneeling on a washboard all night? No wonder his knees look wrecked. The imperial study fell deathly silent. The emperor's brush froze midair. The Prime Minister's jade thumb ring clinked against his teacup. The Minister of War's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. The general's mouth twitched like he'd been electrocuted. I had absolutely no idea anything was wrong, and kept gossiping happily in my head. I heard his wife is the only daughter of the late Marquis of the Northern Guard, a powerful martial artist. The minister won her over with a love poem back in the day, but on their wedding night, she flipped him onto the ground with one hand. TSK. Truly the legendary weak scholar type. Clang! The Minister of War suddenly dropped to his knees, forehead slamming into the floor, his voice trembling. Why, Your Majesty? Aye. The Emperor cleared his throat and said calmly, as if nothing had happened. My dear Minister, since your legs are unwell, you may dispense with formalities. Continue discussing the military funds. I wore the universal dead-eyed look of someone forced to wake up at 8 a.m., mechanically waving the fan. I didn't notice at all that the Minister of War was staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. From that point on, the atmosphere of the meeting turned deeply bizarre. Every time a minister spoke, my attention drifted uncontrollably to their private lives. The Vice Minister of Revenue sneaked off to drink at a brothel again last night and got caught red-handed by his wife. He still has nail marks on the back of his neck. The Vice Minister suddenly grabbed his neck, stuttering mid-sentence. The Grand General looks fierce on the surface, but he's terrified of his wife. He only gets 5 taels of silver as allowance every month. After his secret stash was discovered, he now has to run a tab just to drink at the tavern. The general spat his tea all over the floor. The Prime Minister looks cold and abstinent, but actually loves writing romance novels. Stuff like the Domineering Prince Falls in love with me. Crack. A thin fracture appeared in the Prime Minister's teacup. I was completely immersed in the joy of eating gossip and noticed nothing strange. I even sighed internally. All of these men are henpecked husbands, but compared to them, the emperor probably has it worse. He works all day handling court affairs, then has to go entertain the harem at night. What a miserable man. The emperor's vermilion brush dragged a long red line across the memorial. When the meeting finally ended, the ministers retreated with expressions full of unease. The Minister of War fled especially fast, like he was escaping for his life. You. Stay. The emperor suddenly pointed at me. My hand shook, and the feather fan almost slipped out of my grip. Oh no. I'm finished. Did he notice I was spacing out? Is he going to punish me? This servant obeys. I knelt down, shaking. Help! Is this how I die on day 1 after transmigrating? Other people transmigrate and live in luxury. Why am I so miserable? Stand up. The emperor's voice carried a faint trace of amusement. What is your name? This servant is called Su Xiaoyu. I kept my head lowered, my thoughts spiraling. Why is he asking my name? Is he writing it down so he can execute me later? I don't want to die yet. Su Xiaoyu. The emperor took a slow sip of tea. From today onward, you will serve at my side, handling brush and ink. I froze. What? Wasn't I just a fan maid? Why did I suddenly get promoted? What? You're unwilling. The emperor raised an eyebrow. This servant would never dare. Thank you for your majesty's boundless grace. I quickly kowtowed. Inside my brain exploded. What is happening? This plot is wrong. I'm supposed to be a nobody. How did I suddenly become someone important? Is it because I fan really well? The emperor's lips twitched slightly. He waved his hand. Dismissed. Return tomorrow for duty. This servant takes her leave. I bowed and backed out of the imperial study. The moment I stepped outside, my legs went weak and I had to brace myself against the wall. That scared me to death. I patted my chest, trying to calm my breathing. At least I survived. Though honestly, the emperor is insanely handsome. Just his gaze is terrifying. When he looks at me, it feels like he can see straight into my thoughts. Haha. No way. That's impossible. I shook my head and skipped off toward the palace maid's quarters, completely unaware that by the window of the imperial study behind me, the emperor was standing there, watching my retreating figure with a thoughtful expression. The next day, I arrived at the imperial study right on time. I stood at the doorway, my heart pounding wildly. This promotion came way too suddenly. There's no way there isn't some kind of scheme behind it, right? I lowered my head and stared at the tips of my shoes. Could it be that the emperor has taken an interest in me? The thought scared me so badly I jolted and immediately shook my head. Wake up, Su Xiaoyu. You're just a palace maid who used to fan people. No looks, no talent. What could the emperor possibly want from you? Your ability to fall asleep while fanning? Come in. The emperor's voice came from inside. I pushed the door open as quietly as possible and stepped inside. Without even lifting his head, the emperor said, "Grind the ink." Yes. I hurried to his side and began grinding the ink obediently. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the memorials on the desk. They were all about the war on the northern frontier. What is your view on the situation in the north, Li? The emperor asked. Prime Minister Li still wore that cold, immortal-like expression. In reply to your majesty, I believe the most urgent matter is to determine where the military funds have gone. Li cupped his hands respectfully. The Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue are telling different stories. An investigation must be conducted. The emperor nodded thoughtfully, then suddenly glanced at me. And what do you think? My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. This servant dares not comment on state affairs. I immediately lowered my head. Inside I was screaming. Why are you asking me? I'm just grinding ink. Is he testing me? Oh no, oh no, oh no, this is how people die. It's fine. I permit you to speak. The emperor set down his vermilion brush and looked at me with interest. I swallowed hard. This servant thinks Prime Minister Li is correct. Oh. The emperor raised an eyebrow. Then who do you think would be suitable to lead the investigation? This question was getting more and more dangerous. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. This servant thinks. My eyes darted around nervously. Just then, I saw Vice Minister Wang from the Ministry of Revenue walk in. The moment I saw him, a piece of information popped into my head automatically. Vice Minister Wang's private stash is hidden under his concubine's chamber pot, wrapped in oil paper. 5,000 taels in total. TSK. He embezzled that much silver. Does the emperor know about this? Cough, cough, cough. The emperor suddenly broke into a violent coughing fit. Li Yi's eyes widened in shock, and he couldn't help glancing sideways at Vice Minister Wang. I looked confused. Your Majesty, are you all right? I'm fine. The emperor waved his hand, a trace of amusement flashing through his eyes. Minister Wang arrives at just the right time. Prime Minister Li and I were discussing the audit of military funds. Vice Minister Wang bowed. Your Majesty, this matter is of great importance. I am willing to personally supervise the investigation. Very well. The emperor nodded, then abruptly changed the subject. I hear that Minister Wang has been rather short on funds lately? Vice Minister Wang froze. This official is doing all right. Is that so? The emperor smiled faintly. Then why would you need to make use of a private stash? And in such a location? Bang! Vice Minister Wang dropped straight to his knees, his face drained of all color. Why, Your Majesty, please see clearly. This official. I stared in shock. Wait, how does the emperor know this? What's the matter, Minister Wang? The emperor asked with feigned concern. I was merely asking casually. Guards, Minister Wang is unwell. Help him down to rest. Vice Minister Wang was completely terrified, his mind in chaos. Your Majesty, I am willing to turn over the private stash to the national treasury for the good of the realm. I beg Your Majesty to spare me this once. My dear minister is thoughtful. I approve. The emperor paused, then added calmly. Before submitting it to the treasury, remember to wash it thoroughly. Vice Minister Wang lay prostrate on the floor, feeling as if he had narrowly escaped death. This official thanks Your Majesty for your boundless mercy. Recovered already? Then withdraw. Vice Minister Wang didn't move for a long time. His legs had gone weak, he couldn't stand up. The emperor gave a subtle look. 2 guards immediately stepped forward and dragged the limp Vice Minister Wang out like a sack of mud. Watching his retreating figure, I muttered inwardly. How does the emperor know everything so precisely? Does he have people spying on his ministers? That's terrifying if you think about it. An eerie silence filled the imperial study. The emperor and Li Yi exchanged a glance. Then the emperor asked me, Su Xiaoyu, do you have family? In reply to Your Majesty, this servant's parents passed away early. I only have an older brother serving in the border army. I answered honestly. Inside, however, my thoughts were running wild. Is he checking my background? Is he really planning to take me into the harem? No way. I haven't even dated before. The border. The emperor's eyes lit up. Which border? The northern frontier, Liangzhou. I answered, then suddenly remembered something. Oh right, my brother mentioned in his last letter that the rice they're eating there is mixed with sand. The soldiers are full of complaints. I clapped a hand over my mouth, staring at the emperor in horror. Oh no. Oh no. Can I even say something like that out loud? Am I about to be accused of spreading rumors? The emperor and Prime Minister Li Yi's eyes both lit up at the same time. The emperor pressed. Did your brother mention which unit specifically? To Liangzhou garrison. I stammered. Inside I wailed. Brother, I'm so sorry. Your little sister might have just gotten you investigated. Good. Very good. The emperor smiled and turned to Li Yi. Prime Minister Li, Immediately send people to conduct a covert investigation of the Liangzhou garrison. Focus on military funds. Li cupped his hands. This minister will see to it at once. Before leaving, he gave me a long, meaningful look. It made my skin crawl. Your Majesty, I asked carefully, did this servant say something wrong? On the contrary, the emperor seemed to be in an excellent mood. You've rendered great merit. Guards, reward Su Xiaoyu with 20 taels of silver. I accepted the silver in a daze, my mind completely blank. What is going on? I just mentioned my brother's letter. How is that meritorious service? Is the emperor some kind of naive fool? The emperor's mouth twitched slightly. He pretended not to hear my thoughts and continued reviewing memorials. Over the next few days, I gradually adapted to serving at the emperor's side. The emperor seemed especially fond of asking for my opinion. From major affairs of state to trivial matters of the inner palace, he always asked, "What do you think?" I constantly bounced between extreme caution and reckless honesty, terrified that one wrong sentence would cost me my head. That day, during morning court, civil and military officials filled the grand hall. As the emperor's attendant, I stood beside him, fanning quietly. Reporting to your Majesty, envoys from the northern frontier will arrive in 3 days to discuss a marriage alliance. The Minister of Rights stepped forward. The emperor frowned. The northern king wishes to marry a princess of our dynasty? Yes. The northern king offers 500 warhorses as bride price and seeks the hand of Princess Yong'an. The court erupted into discussion. Princess Yong'an was the emperor's only sister, just 16 years old and deeply beloved. As soon as I heard the news, information flooded my mind automatically. The northern king is over 60. He's had 6 wives, all of whom died. Rumor has it he has special proclivities. This so-called marriage alliance is fake. The real goal is to probe our nation's strength. Oh, and the chief envoy and deputy envoy's wives are sisters who cheated on each other with the other's husband. Haha, ugly men, wild lives. I was fully immersed in my gossip-induced joy, completely unaware that the entire court had fallen utterly silent. Recently, I noticed that my job had become unusually easy. The emperor's attitude toward me could practically be described as gentle and pleasant. When ministers saw me, they would nod in greeting. Even the head eunuch, who was usually arrogant and full of himself, had started smiling at me. As I ground ink for the emperor, I happily thought to myself, could it be that they really appreciate my honest, low-key personality? The tip of the emperor's brush paused ever so slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched. Your Majesty, Minister Zhang of the Ministry of War requests an audience. The eunuch announced. Admit him. The emperor replied without lifting his head. Minister Zhang entered and bowed. His right leg was clearly stiff and unsteady. I couldn't help but take a few extra looks. Information immediately popped into my mind. Minister Zhang got caught hiding private money again yesterday. This time his punishment was kneeling on an abacus. His knees are covered in tiny dents. I hurriedly covered my mouth. Minister Zhang shot me a vicious glare. I instantly lowered my gaze. Eyes on nose, nose on heart, pure discipline. My dear minister's legs seem unwell. Have a seat. A trace of amusement flickered in the emperor's eyes. Minister Zhang's old face flushed red. Thank you for your Majesty's consideration. This official merely twisted his leg while practicing martial arts last night. The emperor raised an eyebrow. Oh, has Madame Zhang's martial skill improved again? Minister Zhang nearly slid off his chair. Why, your Majesty jests. Inside I was laughing my head off. Ha ha, this is killing me. So even the emperor knows Minister Zhang is terrified of his wife. Looks like his legendary deeds are famous throughout the court. The emperor coughed lightly. What brings you here, Minister Zhang? Minister Zhang wiped the sweat from his forehead. In reply to your Majesty, the Northern Frontier Envoy delegation has arrived at the courier station. However, this official discovered that their accompanying personnel exceed the declared number by more than 20. I fear there may be something amiss. The emperor pondered. What sort of people are the extras? They claim to be a merchant caravan, but every one of them is strong and well-built. They do not resemble ordinary merchants. Minister Zhang frowned. I subconsciously looked at him, my inner gossip engine revving up. Those people are death warriors sent by the Northern King. They're disguised as merchants to sneak into the capital. Their goal is to cause chaos if negotiations break down. The leader has a scar on his face, staying in the second room on the west side of the courier station. Their weapons are hidden in secret compartments under the cargo carts. Cough. The emperor suddenly coughed. I was startled and hurried to offer him tea. Your Majesty, please take care of your health, Minister Zhang said anxiously. The emperor waved his hand. I am fine. Minister Zhang, keep a close watch on the courier station. Also, inspect their cargo carts carefully. Minister Zhang nodded repeatedly. This official obeys. After Minister Zhang withdrew, the emperor suddenly asked me, Su Xiaoyu, what do you think the northern frontier envoys are really after? Huh. I looked completely confused. This servant does not understand matters of state. It's fine. Consider it casual conversation. The emperor set down his vermilion brush and looked at me with interest. I braced myself and said, This servant thinks they may have ill intentions. And why do you think so? The emperor pressed. Just intuition? I answered carefully. Inside my thoughts were screaming. Those death warriors' real target seems to be Princess Yong'an. They plan to kidnap her and force the emperor to make concessions. The emperor's gaze turned icy in an instant. I understand. Guards, summon Prime Minister Li and the Grand General. Before long, Li Yi and the Grand General arrived together. The emperor briefly explained his suspicion that the marriage alliance concealed hostile intentions. The northern barbarians have enormous nerve. The Grand General exploded with rage. I request permission to lead the Imperial Guards and surround the courier station. Li Yi, however, remained calm. That would be unwise. Surrounding the courier station without solid evidence would violate diplomatic protocol. Better to play along and lure the snake out of its hole. The emperor nodded. What Prime Minister Li says is correct. Increase security in the inner palace. Also, send capable men to infiltrate the courier station and keep a close eye on those so-called merchants. I listened completely absorbed. Inside I thought, Prime Minister Li really is smart. Those death warriors plan to act in 2 days, during the princess's garden outing. If we alert them too early, they'll change their plan, and that'll be even harder to guard against. A sharp gleam flashed in the emperor's eyes. The safety of the palace women must not suffer the slightest mistake. Li Yi understood immediately. This minister will make arrangements in advance. The Grand General thumped his chest. I will personally lead the operation. I guarantee those northern dogs won't return alive. When the discussion ended, the two ministers withdrew. After pondering for a moment, the emperor spoke again. Su Xiaoyu. In 2 days, you will accompany Princess Yong'an on her garden excursion. Me. I pointed at my own nose, my face full of disbelief. What, are you unwilling? The emperor raised an eyebrow. No. This servant obeys. I hurriedly bowed. Inside my mind exploded. Why me? I'm just a fan maid. And the emperor doesn't even offer overtime pay. The emperor's expression turned strange, like he was holding back laughter and feeling helpless at the same time. Leave. This servant takes her leave. I exited the imperial study full of confusion. I failed to notice the emperor pressing his temple and letting out a quiet sigh. 2 days later, the imperial garden. I followed Princess Yong'an with trembling steps. The princess was 16 years old, bright-eyed and radiant, lively and adorable, with none of the arrogance of royalty. Xiaoyu, look. These peonies are blooming so beautifully. She grabbed my hand excitedly. They're even more gorgeous than during Mother Empress's birthday last year. Yes, Your Highness. I forced a smile and agreed. But my eyes kept scanning the surroundings. My thoughts were fixed on the northern frontier assassins. Those death warriors should be hiding behind the rockery. Huh? I focused my attention in that direction. To my shock, my vision pierced straight through the rockery. I could clearly see 5 burly men hiding behind it, each holding a weapon. The leader has a scarred face, with a poison-coated dagger at his waist. They plan to strike when the princess passes the pavilion. Oh my god, this is way too intense. Just as I was desperately figuring out how to warn the guards, a thunderous shout rang out. Assassins! In an instant, dozens of guards poured in from all directions, completely surrounding the rockery. The Grand General stood at the front, clad in full armor, imposing and majestic. Northern dogs. Surrender at once. The 5 death warriors, realizing they had been exposed, roared and charged out in a desperate fight. The scene descended into chaos. I immediately shielded the princess and retreated. Xiaoyu, don't be afraid. The princess actually comforted me instead. My brother already arranged everything. Sure enough, in less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, all 5 assassins were subdued. The Grand General dragged the scar-faced man over. Speak. Who sent you? The man sneered, then suddenly began foaming at the mouth and collapsed. This is bad, he swallowed poison. The Grand General quickly grabbed his jaw, but it was already too late. Watching from afar, my heart pounded in fear. Thank goodness the Emperor was prepared. Otherwise, the princess would have been in real danger. Wait, how did the Emperor know? Is his intelligence network really that terrifying? Is there anything in this palace that he doesn't know? Once the danger was resolved, the Emperor strode over to check on the princess. After confirming his sister was unharmed, he gave me a long, meaningful look. Su Xiaoyu protected the royal presence with merit. Reward her with 100 taels of silver, and promote her to palace attendant-in-chief. Huh. My mouth fell open. His servant thanks your majesty for your boundless grace. When I left the imperial garden, my entire head was still spinning. That's it? I got promoted again? What rank is palace attendant-in-chief anyway? How much does it pay? Do I get annual leave? Behind me, the Emperor exchanged knowing glances with several ministers. That evening in my new residence, a small courtyard all to myself, I happily counted my reward silver. 100 taels. That could buy so much good food. I rolled around on my bed in pure joy. It seemed that as long as I worked honestly in this palace, there was a future after all. I decided that tomorrow I'd go to the imperial kitchen and get myself a roast chicken to celebrate. At that very moment, inside the imperial study, the Emperor was holding a private meeting with several trusted ministers. Your Majesty, Miss Su's ability appears to have grown stronger, Li Yi said thoughtfully. Today, she accurately identified both the number of assassins and their hiding place. The Grand General stroked his beard. This little girl is interesting. This old general believes she could be trained and used for military intelligence in the future. That would be inappropriate. The Emperor shook his head. Her ability is uncontrollable. If enemy states learn of it, she would face certain death. Then your Majesty means? Li Yi probed carefully. A deep glint flashed through the Emperor's eyes. For now, maintain the status quo. Since she does not know that we can hear her thoughts, she will not deliberately guard against us. As for the Northern Frontier Envoy delegation, he paused slightly. I have my own plans. The ministers exchanged glances, then answered in unison. We obey your Majesty's command. After being promoted to palace attendant-in-chief, my duties expanded from simply waving a fan to serving ink and brushes, organizing memorials, and occasionally brewing tea for the Emperor. The workload increased, but so did the benefits. My monthly stipend tripled, and I was given my own courtyard residence along with a personal palace maid. This promotion and raise speed is basically rocket-level acceleration. I beamed internally as I refilled the Emperor's teacup. The Emperor was reviewing memorials. The corner of his mouth lifted for the briefest instant, then his expression returned to its usual majesty. Your Majesty, the Northern Frontier envoys request an audience outside the hall, Chief Eunuch Wang Dequan reported with a bow. The Emperor nodded. Summon them. I immediately straightened my posture, adopting the dignified bearing expected of a palace attendant-in-chief. Before long, 3 Northern Frontier envoys strode into the hall. Leading them was the bearded Ashina Hun. Behind him were the deputy envoy and a scribe. We pay respects to His Majesty, the Emperor of Great Liang. Ashina Hun bowed, his voice booming. My ears rang from the volume. You may rise. The Emperor set down his vermilion brush, his gaze sharp and piercing. So, how has your consideration progressed? Ashina Hun's expression darkened. Your Majesty, 1,000 warhorses is truly too many. My king can offer at most 800. I quietly observed them, and without meaning to, my mind went straight into gossip mode. Ashina Hun actually carries a secret decree authorizing him to agree to 1,000 horses, but he wants to bargain so he can pocket 200 for himself. The deputy envoy is calculating how to split the profit with his brother-in-law, and that scribe has poison hidden in his belt, planning to slip it into the emperor's tea. The emperor's face hardened instantly. Since your envoy lacks sincerity, you may return. Guards, see them out. Wait. Ashina Hun panicked. Your Majesty, everything can still be discussed. The emperor sneered. 1,000 war horses, not one less. In addition, 5 border trade ports. Otherwise, negotiations end here. Sweat broke out on Ashina Hun's forehead. Allow us to deliberate further. No need. The emperor suddenly slammed the table and stood. Do you truly believe I am unaware that you plotted to abduct Princess Yongin? That you concealed poison? That you intended to line your own pockets? The 3 envoys went deathly pale. The scribe in particular unconsciously reached toward his belt. Guards! At the emperor's command, soldiers rushed in and surrounded them. Search them. Sure enough, a packet of white powder was found hidden in the scribe's belt. The imperial physicians confirmed it was slow-acting lethal poison. Ashina Hun's legs gave out and he dropped to his knees. Your Majesty, please see clearly. This matter was absolutely not ordered by my king. It was this servant acting on his own. The emperor snorted coldly. In that case, I shall clean house on behalf of the northern king. Drag him out. Execute him. As the scribe was dragged away, he struggled wildly. My lord, save me. You were the one who told me to. Gag him. Ashina Hun shouted harshly. Then he turned back to the emperor with a forced smile. Your Majesty, this servant is speaking nonsense. The emperor didn't bother responding. 1,000 war horses. 5 trade ports. And an additional 100,000 taels of silver as compensation for frightening Princess Yongin agree. And we sign the peace treaty today. Refuse. And I mobilize troops to the northern frontier immediately. I stood there completely stunned. Wow. The emperor negotiates like a butcher with a cleaver. But honestly, the northern frontier deserves it. This is what you get. Ashina Hun's face turned ashen. After exchanging glances with the deputy envoy, he finally gritted his teeth. This humble envoy obeys the decree. Minister Li, draft the treaty. The emperor sat back down, visibly satisfied. Your Majesty, this humble envoy will depart tomorrow to return to my country. Ashina Hun bowed. My king will fulfill the treaty terms as agreed. The emperor inclined his head slightly. Let us hope so. After court was dismissed, I was just about to slip away when Chancellor Li stopped me. Attendant Su. Li still looked as aloof and ethereal as a banished immortal. I've heard your chess skills are quite good. Might I ask for a match? Huh. I stared at him completely lost. I don't know how to play chess. Chancellor Li's skill is exceptional. Attendant Su may as well give it a try. The emperor suddenly interjected, his eyes holding a depth I couldn't decipher. With no way out, I braced myself. Then this servant will make a fool of herself. The chessboard was set. I sat down nervously. I'm doomed. I can't even play 5 in a row properly. I'm about to get annihilated. But once the match began, I realized something was off. Li wasn't nearly as overpowering as I'd expected. Or rather, he seemed to be deliberately holding back. That's strange. Isn't Chancellor Li known as a chess sage? I placed a piece while thinking. Why does it feel like he's guiding my moves? I sneaked a glance at Li and met his deep, unreadable gaze. Startled, I immediately lowered my head. Has Attendant Su been well lately? Li asked, his voice cool and polished like jade. Replying to Chancellor Li, this servant is doing well, I answered stiffly. Inside my head, alarms were blaring. Why does Chancellor Li seem so interested in me? Not that kind of interest, more like research. There's a booklet in his study that records my weight. Records what about me? Just as I tried to probe deeper, Li suddenly stood up. It's getting late. We'll continue another day. With that, he left with effortless grace, leaving me alone, staring blankly at the chessboard. What was that? I scratched my head. Why are all these big shots so mysterious? While packing up the pieces, I noticed a small booklet had fallen beneath Li Yi's seat. Curious, I picked it up. On the cover were written 5 characters. Record of Sioux clan's words and deeds. I flipped it open. Good heavens! It was densely packed with notes recording exactly when and what I had said. What the hell? My hand trembled and the booklet dropped to the floor. Could it be? Chancellor Li secretly has feelings for me? Otherwise, why would he only record what I say? Wait, no. I'm being way too narcissistic. Ha 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 ha. Then a terrifying thought struck me. Could he be suspecting me of disloyalty? A chill ran through me. But after a moment I shook my head. No way. I'm overthinking this. This booklet is probably, surveillance notes? I am a favored attendant now, after all. I comforted myself, placed the booklet back where it belonged, and decided to pretend nothing had happened. When I returned to the imperial study, the emperor was reviewing memorials. I quietly stepped forward to grind ink, but my mind kept drifting back to that booklet. What are you thinking about? The emperor suddenly asked. Nothing. I shook my head frantically. Inside I panicked. There's no way I can say I suspect Chancellor Li has a crush on me. That'd be way too self-absorbed. The emperor's brush paused briefly, then continued as if nothing had happened. Tomorrow is a rest day. You may leave the palace and take a stroll. Really? My eyes lit up. Thank you, Your Majesty. Bring the guards I assign, the emperor added. I accepted happily. Yes, Your Majesty. Going out with bodyguards. I finally get to experience rich people happiness. Early in the morning on my day off, I changed into plain clothes, tucked a purse of silver into my sleeve, and got ready to head out of the palace. Just as I reached the palace gate, 2 guards stepped forward. Lady Sue, the lead guard said, clasping his fists. We've been ordered to escort you. He was tall and broad-shouldered. One look and you knew he was reliable. Much obliged, I said politely. Inside though I was practically cackling. Ha ha ha. Me Su Xiaoyu rolling out with bodyguards now. I'd love to put my hands on my hips and laugh out loud, but nope, even shaking my leg too smugly is forbidden. Tragic. The guard commander's mouth twitched for a moment before he returned to a solemn expression. Where would Lady Sue like to go? Let's start with the East Market, I said cheerfully. I'd been in this world for ages and still hadn't properly experienced the capital's bustle. The East Market was packed with people. Shops lined the streets, one after another. I felt like a bird released from its cage. Wandering here, touching things there. Completely forgetting I still had 2 bodyguards behind me. Miss, care to look at some fine rouge and powder? A heavily made-up middle-aged woman greeted me warmly. I leaned toward the counter, instantly drawn to the delicate porcelain boxes. Lowering her voice, the woman asked, Miss, are you from the palace? My hand trembled and I nearly dropped the rouge. How did you know? These old eyes of mine, she said with a smile. I can always tell. You're so fresh and lovely. Surely you serve someone important in the palace? Alarm bells went off. Instinctively, the gossip engine in my brain kicked in. She's a northern border sleeper agent. She lurks outside the palace, trying to turn palace servants into informants. She wants to recruit me, to poison the emperor's food. I sucked in a sharp breath and took 2 steps back. Sorry. I just remembered I have something urgent. I spun around and bolted. The 2 guards immediately followed. Miss, don't rush off, the woman called after me. I've got even better goods. I didn't dare look back, only stopping after turning 2 streets, panting. Lady Sue, what happened? The guard commander asked with concern. Nothing, I said quickly. I just suddenly didn't feel like buying anything. He glanced thoughtfully in the direction of the rouge shop but didn't press further. After that, my mood for shopping was completely gone. All I could think about was that northern border agent. Should I tell His Majesty? But if I do, how do I explain how I know she's an agent? What if he asks where my information came from? While I was agonizing, a rich aroma drifted over. I looked up. It was a roast chicken shop. Golden, crispy chickens hung in the window, fresh out of the oven. My mouth instantly filled with saliva. Forget it. Food first, problems later. I waved my hand grandly. Boss. 1 roast chicken. While I was devouring it at a small roadside table, I noticed a young man dressed like a scholar across the street sneaking glances at me. Looking closer, I saw a token at his waist, the general's mansion. Huh. Someone from the Grand General's household? I instinctively read the situation. So the general's only daughter has gone missing. The household has sent people everywhere. This scholar is her tutor. He's been secretly in love with her for years and is convinced she was kidnapped, not eloping. Gnawing on a drumstick, I thought to myself, she really was kidnapped. Locked up in an abandoned estate west of the city. The kidnappers plan to demand ransom. Cough cough. The guard commander suddenly started coughing. Sir, are you all right? I'm fine, he said, wiping his mouth, then abruptly stood up. Lady Sue, please wait here. I'll be right back. He left in a hurry, leaving me and the other guards staring at each other. After eating, I browsed a few silk shops and jewelry stalls, buying some small trinkets. On the way back to the palace, the guard commander finally caught up with us, his face glowing with barely concealed joy. Something good happen? I asked curiously. Nothing, he said, though his smile wouldn't fade. Just helped a friend resolve a bit of trouble. I didn't think much of it, humming as I climbed into the carriage. Back at my courtyard, a young eunuch greeted me. Lady Sue, His Majesty summons you to the imperial study. Now. I checked the sky. It's almost dinner time. Lowering his voice, the eunuch said. His Majesty said it's urgent, something related to the Grand General. My heart skipped. I still hadn't figured out how to tell the Emperor about the General's daughter. In the study, both the Emperor and the Grand General were present, both smiling. This servant greets Your Majesty and the Grand General, I said, bowing properly. Rise, the Emperor said gently. Su Xiaoyu, you rendered great service today. Ah, I was completely lost. I just left the palace today. I didn't do anything. The Grand General stepped forward excitedly. My daughter has been found. Thanks to you. Well, thanks to the guard at your side. I blinked. What happened? The Emperor explained. The guard commander noticed clues and led men to the western suburbs. They found the general's daughter in an abandoned estate. That's wonderful, I said sincerely. She's unharmed, right? Shaken but safe, the Grand General said, eyes reddening. Lady Sue, I owe you a great debt. No, I waved frantically. It was entirely the guard's merit. I did nothing. No need for modesty, the Emperor said meaningfully. If not for you keeping such sharp company, would this have gone so smoothly? Something about his words felt off, but I couldn't quite pinpoint it. After the Grand General left with endless thanks, the Emperor asked, Did you enjoy your outing today? It was nice. I hesitated, thinking of the rouge shop. Did you encounter trouble? There was a rouge shop in the East Market. The owner felt strange. The Emperor's gaze sharpened instantly. Oh? In what way? She seemed unusually interested in palace affairs. He nodded thoughtfully. I'll have people look into it. Do you remember the location? Yes. I quickly described it. Inside I relaxed. Even if she's caught, it won't lead back to me. Su Xiaoyu, the Emperor said seriously. Though the northern border envoys have left the capital, many sleeper agents remain. My heart skipped a beat. This servant was unaware. They specialize in recruiting palace staff, he said, staring at me. If you encounter anything suspicious, report it immediately. This servant obeys. Inside, panic spiraled. Does he already know that woman approached me? If he knew, why not ask directly? Then the Emperor abruptly changed the subject. The Empress Dowager's birthday is in 3 days. You will attend her side. He waved his hand. You may withdraw. This servant takes her leave. I exited the study full of confusion, unable to understand why the Emperor treated me so differently. 3 days later, the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. I wore newly tailored robes, standing nervously behind the Emperor serving wine. The hall was filled with nobles. The glitter nearly blinded me. So that's Lady Sue? I hear His Majesty favors her greatly. She looks ordinary. How did she earn such attention? The whispers prickled my back. The Empress Dowager was dignified and gracious, her eyes sharp despite her kindly appearance. When her gaze swept over me, I nearly dropped the wine jug. Emperor, she asked, Is this the girl you mentioned? Yes, he replied. Lady Sue is clever and perceptive. I thought Mother would like her. Oh. She beckoned me forward. Come closer. Let this old woman have a good look. My legs trembled. This servant greets the Empress Dowager and wishes your ladyship boundless fortune and longevity. Such a sweet tongue, she chuckled. I hear you helped the Grand General find his daughter? I dare not claim credit, I said quickly. It was all the guard commander, this servant did nothing. Lowering her voice, she asked, Then tell me, does Minister Zhao of the Ministry of Rights truly keep a mistress and an illegitimate child, as rumored? Oh ah! Mother! The Emperor cut in helplessly. The Empress Dowager laughed. Very well. I was merely curious. She even winked at me. I returned to my place utterly dazed, my mind screaming. What is happening? The Empress Dowager is gossiping too. And yes, Minister Zhao does have a mistress. West City, Osmanthus Alley. The child's 5 and looks exactly like him. Cough. The Emperor suddenly coughed. Several nearby officials covered their mouths. The Empress Dowager remained expressionless, but her eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of premium gossip. Mid-banquet, a palace maid approached the Empress Dowager with a tray of pastries. I glanced at her, and my whole body tensed. She's a northern border agent. The pastries are poisoned. Sweat poured down my back as the Empress Dowager reached for them. No time to think, I rushed forward. Your ladyship, please wait. The hall fell silent. The maid's hand shook. The tray nearly slipped. This servant only meant. Thinking fast, I said, These pastries look so tempting. May I taste them for you first? The Empress Dowager's eyes flashed. She smiled. What a greedy girl. Very well. I took the pastry, pretending to eat it, but slipped it into my sleeve. Delicious, I said exaggeratedly. Though perhaps a bit too sweet. Didn't your ladyship say you should avoid sweets lately? Understanding dawned. She waved her hand. Then remove them. The maid turned pale and hurried away. The Emperor subtly signaled. The guard commander followed. After the banquet, the Emperor summoned me to a side hall. You've rendered service again today. This servant doesn't understand. I played dumb. The imperial physician confirmed it. There was poison. I sucked in a breath. That maid. She confessed. A northern border spy, the Emperor said coldly. She meant to poison the Empress Dowager and stir chaos. I patted my chest. Good thing we caught it. The Emperor looked at me sternly. How did you know the pastries were poisoned? This servant. Noticed she seemed nervous. He didn't pursue it further. Enough. Go rest. Thank you, Your Majesty. I fled like I'd been pardoned from execution. Outside I exhaled deeply. That was close. Why didn't he ask more? Isn't he curious at all? I shook my head. Survival first, questions later. Back in my quarters, I pushed open the door and found an exquisite food box on the table. Inside, an assortment of pastries. A note read, a reward. So you won't snatch food from others again. I scratched my head. Why is he rewarding me with pastries? Who did I snatch food from? Oh, I snatched the Empress Dowager's pastry. Is he mocking me for being greedy? I popped a piece of osmanthus cake into my mouth. Sweetness spread instantly, wiping away all worries. Whatever. Good food, good pay, steady job, this life isn't bad at all. Outside the window, a dark figure slipped away toward the imperial study. After hearing the report, the Emperor smiled faintly. That girl, he murmured, is surprisingly easy to placate. My position in the palace grew increasingly peculiar. In name, I was still the imperial attendant in waiting. But in practice, the treatment the Emperor gave me was already on par with that of a consort. I moved into Jingyao Pavilion.my, grounds doubled in size.my, monthly stipend doubled again. And I was assigned 2 junior maids solely to serve me. I was in the middle of eating rose pastries when a maid came rushing in, pale with panic. Lady Sue, terrible news. The northern border has attacked. I spat out a mouthful of tea. The northern border king had mobilized his army and launched a surprise assault on the frontier. Court erupted instantly. The hawks and the doves argued so fiercely they were practically spitting fire. I was urgently summoned to the imperial study. The emperor sat with several senior ministers, all of them grave. Your Majesty, the northern border advances aggressively. They've already taken 2 of our border cities. The Grand General jabbed the map so hard his beard quivered. This old servant requests immediate deployment. Li shook his head. The enemy came prepared. A hasty counterattack may cost us dearly. Better to fortify and send envoys to negotiate. The Grand General slammed the table. They're riding right over our heads. Negotiate my ass. Just as the 2 were about to explode, the emperor raised his hand. Then his gaze fell on me. Su Xiaoyu, what do you think? I froze. This servant knows nothing of warfare. That's fine. Speak freely. His tone was gentle, but refusal was not an option. I swallowed and said, this servant thinks, if the northern border king suddenly launched a war, there must be a reason? Could there be trouble within their state? The emperor's eyes lit up. Go on. Well, I heard there's been a drought this year. Poor harvests. Then in my head the gossip engine went wild. Turns out the northern border king's favorite third prince fell ill with a strange disease. None of their physicians can cure him. This war? He wants to seize Great Liang's imperial physicians. Honestly, going to war for your kid is impressive. But why not just ask politely? His Majesty refused? Now something feels off. He's not just here for doctors. The emperor took a deep breath. So in your heart, I'm a stingy bastard? The ministers broke into cold sweat. Was that something they were allowed to hear? The emperor, in a fit of rage, raged briefly. Minister Li, immediately investigate the northern border king's sons. See if internal turmoil is brewing. 3 days later, scouts returned. The emperor struck the table. Issue the decree. Send the head of the Imperial Medical Academy to treat the third prince. Border troops are to reinforce defenses. Your Majesty is wise. The court praised in unison. Inside I beamed. Another day alive. Didn't become a conquered citizen. 1 month later, the northern border retreated. The chief physician cured the third prince. The northern border king was deeply grateful, not only fulfilling all treaty obligations, but gifting an extra 500 fine horses. At the victory banquet, the emperor announced publicly, Lady Su has rendered repeated great service. She is hereby granted the title Lady of Anil County, awarded an estate, and 1,000 taels of gold. My jaw nearly hit the floor. No way. No way. I was a palace maid. How am I nobility now? Well, the emperor raised a brow. Not thanking me? This servant, this subject, thanks your Majesty for your boundless grace. I dropped to my knees. Inside, oh no. This is too high. Is he going to make me a consort next? Absolutely not. The emperor's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. After moving into the county estate, my life changed completely. In name, I was still the emperor's attendant, but in reality, I no longer needed to report daily. I was granted free access to the palace at any time. And then came an order. I was to listen in on ministers' gossip. Was I crazy enough to do that? Even if I were, I didn't have the skills. So I just went through the motions. Then I reported whatever gossip I accidentally picked up, pretending I'd investigated. The Empress Dowager treated me like her own daughter. She summoned me constantly. Anil, she'd ask while cracking melon seeds. I hear the Minister of War hid private money again? I swallowed a grape. Reporting to your ladyship, Lord Zhang hid it in a hollowed-out copy of the Analects. 200 taels. Unfortunately, all confiscated. He's broke now. Quite pitiful. The Empress Dowager laughed so hard she slapped her thigh. Seeing her so happy made me happy too. Every visit earned me piles of rewards. Time flew. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. In those 10 years, relying on my keen judgment, aka gossip powers, I helped the court resolve countless crises. The northern border became our ally. The western nomads were beaten into submission. Great Liang prospered. The people lived in peace. I, Su Xiaoyu, became the most unusual noble in Liang's history. No real power, yet unmatched status, never involved in politics, yet consulted whenever something happened. Lady County Head, Minister Li requests an audience, a maid reported softly. Let him in. I set down my melon seeds. Li entered, still cool and immortal-like, though fine lines now traced his eyes. Minister Li, what brings you here today? I asked with a smile. He bowed, then produced a booklet. This humble official has written a new story. Please review it. I took it. The cover read, "The Domineering Minister Falls for Me." I burst out laughing. You still love writing stories, Minister Li? His old face flushed. It's just for fun, if the lady finds it improper. Proper. Extremely proper. I tucked it away eagerly. I love reading your stories. After he left, more visitors came. Some asked about colleagues' secrets. Some begged for favors. Some even sought relationship advice. Lady County Head, the Grand General's wife said worriedly, my husband's been coming home late. Do you think he has another woman? I nearly laughed. Madam, rest easy. He's preparing a surprise for your 40th birthday. Bought land west of the city, and is personally building you a summer estate. Really? Her worry turned to joy. That old fool. Then I'll pretend I know nothing. Absolutely, I nodded gravely. After seeing off the last guest, I stretched and headed to the garden. At the corridor, I ran into the emperor. Well, former emperor now. He abdicated last year and became the carefree retired emperor. Your Majesty? I blinked. Why are you here? Nothing to do. Came to play chess. He waved the board. Over 10 years he'd changed the most. No longer cold and imposing. Now easygoing, smiling, always visiting my estate. You just can't accept losing, I muttered, but still set up the board. Nonsense, he glared. When have I ever? Last time you lost 3 rounds and accused me of stealing your pieces. I showed no mercy. He flushed. You did steal them. Proof. I sensed it. We bickered while playing just like every day for 10 years. Mid-game he suddenly asked, Xiao Yu, you're 35 this year, yes? Hum. Ever think of marrying? My hand shook. A piece clattered. Why ask all of a sudden? Just curious. He looked straight at me. You know, if you nodded, there'd be a line a mile long. I curled my lips. No thanks. I'm doing great alone. Marriage is troublesome, serving husband, raising kids. This life. Eat when I want, play when I want, gossip every day. You? He shook his head helplessly. So you'll live like this forever? What's wrong with that? I grinned. I'm the happiest county lady in Great Liang. Status. Money. Freedom. He laughed loudly. Very well. Do as you please. We played until dusk. As he left, he turned back. Xiao Yu. Did you truly never consider entering the palace? I froze. In 10 years he'd never asked so directly. I smiled gently. Your Majesty, someone like me doesn't belong behind palace walls. He studied me, then nodded. I understand. I knew he'd been waiting all these years for me to change my mind. But I also knew, once I entered the palace, I'd stop being happy Su Xiao Yu. This is better. A lifetime of gossip. Joy for all. Spring passed into autumn. Years flowed on. I lived my dream. A lifetime of gossip. Never married. I watched Li Yi's stories evolve. From the domineering minister falls for me to the cold general's tender wife. I watched the minister of war and his wife bicker their way into old age. I watched the grand general's daughter marry the devoted tutor. And the retired emperor, until his final days, never stopped coming to my estate to play chess. The day he passed, he left me a secret decree. Lady Annal County Su Xiaoyu may enter any part of the palace freely. None may bar her. His final gift to me, the right to keep eating gossip. The new emperor treated this favored old county lady with great respect. Great Aunt Annal, the young consorts whispered eagerly. Is it true the vice minister's concubine pushed the legal wife into a well? I cracked melon seeds leisurely, smiling like a Buddha. Well, that's a long story. The setting sun bathed the palace tiles in gold. My gossip companions changed again.
Thank you for listening Beneath the Moonlight. If this story touched your heart, remember to subscribe to Moonlit Love Stories for more tales of love and destiny. Until we meet again, may the moonlight keep you company.